Donald Trump's senior advisor for policy, Stephen Miller, announced today that the White House is weighing the possibility of suspending the writ of habeas corpus, the legal safeguard that allows individuals to challenge their detention in court.
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day, Congress passed a body of law known as the Immigration and Nationality Act, which stripped Article III courts, that's the judicial branch, of jurisdiction over immigration cases. So Congress actually passed, it's called jurisdiction stripping legislation. It passed a number of laws that say that the Article III courts aren't even allowed to be involved in immigration cases.
The U.S. Constitution states the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. Historically, habeas corpus has only been suspended on 4 occasions, most famously by Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. Other instances include action against the Ku Klux Klan in South Carolina in the 1800s, in the Philippines in 1905, and after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Implementing such a suspension would mark a highly aggressive step, significantly intensifying the Trump regime's authoritarian push to bypass judicial oversight as it seeks to carry out deportations without allowing legal challenges. Miller, known for his hardline, far-right nationalist immigration stance, has advocated for sweeping deportations. The government has frequently provided minimal evidence in support of its deportation cases, and in some situations has attempted to expel legally present individuals for their political views, including expressions of solidarity with Palestinians. Several immigrants targeted by these measures, such as Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeysa Ozturk, have filed habeas corpus petitions to contest their deportations. The regime has already made use of the Alien Enemies Act, an 18th century statute that permits the president to remove individuals from the country during wartime to circumvent due process.
So it's not just the courts aren't just at war with the executive branch. The courts are at war, these radical rogue judges, with the legislative branch as well, too. So all of that will inform the choices the president ultimately makes.
To justify these actions, the Trump administration claims the U.S. is facing an invasion by a Venezuelan gang. However, multiple judges have dismissed this claim and attempted to block the deportations. Despite judicial pushback, Trump has repeatedly criticized judges who have ruled against his policies and, at times, has defied court orders outright, resulting in a constitutional crisis.
This administration is going to pursue immigration enforcement and cooperation in every city. And anyone who doesn't comply with the laws and dictates of this country will face the appropriate legal consequences. That applies to Eric Adams, and that applies to every other mayor in this country. The law is the law is the law. And if obstruction, if hindering, if harboring occurs, then the full range of potential penalties applies to any any state official or local official that's engaging in obstructionist behavior. But I would also say that when it comes to immigration enforcement, now that we have achieved the mission of sealing the border, you're going to see more and more resources and priorities put into the mass deportation program. And so on a day-to-day basis, you're going to see exponentially larger numbers of illegal aliens being arrested and removed from the interior.
Meanwhile, Rumeysa Ozturk, the Tufts University student who had been detained since March over her political expression, has been released from a Louisiana detention facility. Ozturk and her legal team argued that her detention violated her constitutional rights. This morning, a federal judge ordered that Ozturk be returned to Vermont, where she was briefly held after masked immigration officers kidnapped her near Boston for court proceedings. However, rather than waiting for her transfer, she appeared via video from Louisiana for the hearing in Burlington. Judge William Sessions ultimately ruled in favor of her release, expressing concerns about the legality of her detention process, which he said posed very significant due process concerns. Ozturk was visibly emotional, embracing one of her attorneys after the decision was announced. She was freed later in the day, her lawyers confirmed. Arguments in her broader legal challenge will continue at a future date. Ozturk, a 30-year-old Turkish national and Ph.D. candidate in child development, was detained on March 25th after being forced into an unmarked vehicle by plainclothed agents. She's been fighting a deportation order issued by the Trump regime following the publication of an opinion piece critical of Israel that she co-authored in a student newspaper. Judge Sessions highlighted the broader implications of Ozturk's detention, noting her continued detention could discourage millions of non-citizens in this country from exercising their First Amendment rights out of fear of detention. For all of those reasons, the court finds that her detention cannot continue, and that bail is necessary to ensure the habeas petition is meaningful. He added that Ozturk had no history of violence or criminal activity and described her as deeply committed to her academic work. There is no indication that she poses any threat to the community, he said. Sessions ordered her immediate release and confirmed she was free to return to her Massachusetts home while the case proceeds. The Trump regime sought Ozturk's deportation under a seldom-used immigration law that permits the removal of individuals considered a threat to U.S. foreign policy. However, the judge pointed out that the only evidence provided by the government was her published article, which he said bolstered her argument that her detention was purely a consequence of her speech, a violation of her First Amendment rights. Ozturk appeared on screen during the hearing in an orange jumpsuit similar to those worn by detainees at Guantanamo Bay. Court documents revealed that she experienced multiple asthma attacks while in custody, struggled to obtain medical care, and had her hijab forcibly removed. Ozturk is one of several international students detained by the Trump regime over their pro-Palestinian advocacy on campus, as Trump uses anti-Semitism as a thinly veiled excuse to kidnap, disappear, and detain legal immigrants, removing their constitutional right to free speech. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.